You know, every time I approach a physics question, I always come back to the same thought. Where's the arrow going? Not some compass needle. I am talking about the arrow of time, the arrow of transformation. Nature has this peculiar law, one we are not terribly fond of. It tells us you can break an egg, but you cannot put it back together. You can knock a glass of red wine onto the carpet, but you cannot pull the stain back up into the glass. There is a direction to everything. There is a current, and if you attempt to paddle against that current, there is a cost. And typically that cost is energy. That cost is structure dissolving into chaos. Now, folks come to me and say, Richard, what are your thoughts on a Mars mission? And they present these gorgeous renderings of spacecraft and habitats and astronauts cultivating vegetables in rusty soil, and all appears magnificent. It appears like a grand expedition. It appears like the following page in humanity's great narrative. We reached the moon, so obviously Mars is next in line. Just another milestone along the way, correct? But I have to interrupt them. I have to say, hold on. You are approaching this like a cartographer. You are treating distance as though it is merely kilometers, as though it is simply empty space. But in physics, distance is not merely space. Distance is an interplay between forces. And when you examine the forces required to reach Mars, and more critically, the forces demanded to return, you come to a frightening realization. It is not a milestone. It is a pitfall. And I do not say that in some science fiction sense. I do not mean aliens are lurking there. I mean that the principles of physics, particularly the principles of thermodynamics and the principles of biology, have joined together to make it a journey with no return. Not because the spacecraft malfunctions, but because the traveler malfunctions, because you malfunction. Let us begin with the initial pitfall, the one sitting right there on the ground waiting for you, the regolith. Now you might respond, Richard, it is merely soil. We have soil on Earth. We have dust storms across the Sahara. We manage just fine. We own brooms. We own vacuum cleaners. What is a concern? Well, allow me to describe a biography of a single grain of sand on Earth. It is an extremely violent biography, but also an extremely polishing one. On Earth, we possess water, we possess rainfall, we possess seas. For thousands of millions of years, every single grain of sand on Earth has been tossed about. It has been rinsed. It has been dragged to and fro by the tides. Picture yourself grabbing a rough shard of glass and placing it inside a rock tumbler for a millennium. What emerges? A polished bead. It is rounded. It is gentle. If you press it between your fingertips, it feels like talc. That is terrestrial dust. It is benign dust. But Mars is a lifeless realm. It has been lifeless for an extraordinarily long period. There is no rainfall. There are no streams. There are no seas. The sole thing that occurs to the stones on Mars is that they get struck. They get shattered by space rocks, massive ones and minuscule ones. For 4,000 million years, stones have been colliding with other stones. So, when you examine a particle of Martian regolith beneath a microscope, you do not observe a bead. You observe a splinter. You observe a blade. It is serrated. It possesses points so fine they are nearly a single molecule across. It is not soil. It is microscopic shattered glass. And it becomes more troubling because Mars is so parched. There is no moisture to dissipate electrical charge. So, these tiny splinters of glass, they accumulate a static charge. They become electrostatically active. They behave like tiny magnets. Now, picture the scenario. You touch down with your vessel. You must manufacture propellant to journey home. You cannot haul the propellant with you because propellant is massive. If you attempted to carry the propellant for a return trip, you would require a rocket as tall as the Empire State Building simply to lift the propellant. So, you must produce it on location. This is what the engineers refer to as in situ resource utilization, a sophisticated label for excavating material and converting it. You must extract frozen water from beneath the surface. You must draw carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. You must operate pumps. You must operate compressors. You must have seals that rotate. You must have bearings that turn. But here arrives the regolith, this magnetized shattered glass. It does not merely rest on the surface. It hovers. The electric fields elevate it. It drifts through the air, and it adheres to everything. It adheres to your solar arrays. It adheres to your suit, and most critically, it adheres to your equipment. It penetrates the bearings, and because it is tougher than steel and finer than a scalpel, it wears the bearings away. It consumes the metal. It infiltrates the rubber gaskets of your airlock, and it slices them apart. You attempt to clean it away, but you cannot clean away because it is magnetized. When you attempt to wipe it, you merely press in further. So there you stand. You are the most brilliant engineer who ever lived. You have constructed this extraordinary plant on Mars to produce your rocket propellant, but the plant is tearing itself apart. The mechanisms are locking up. The fittings are dripping. The solar arrays are blanketed in a film of reddish grime that you cannot rinse away because there is no water. Physics is opposing you. The electrostatic forces are opposing you. The abrasion is opposing you. And you come to understand that the apparatus you constructed to carry you home is finished. But let us stay hopeful. I enjoy staying hopeful. Suppose you conquer the regolith challenge. Suppose you devise some miraculous substance that the regolith cannot slice. You produce your propellant. You top off the reservoir. You are prepared to depart. Now we must examine the second pitfall. And this one is not about the apparatus. This one is about the flesh. This one is about you. We must discuss radiation. Now, people hear the term radiation, and they envision luminous green ooze or atomic weapons. But radiation is actually far simpler and far more alarming than that. Radiation is merely tiny projectiles, minuscule particles, protons, helium nuclei traveling extremely, extremely rapidly. How rapidly? Approaching the speed of light. On Earth we are pampered. We are astonishingly fortunate. We possess two defenses. We possess the magnetic field of the Earth, which captures these projectiles and twists them away toward the poles, which produces the aurora. And we possess the atmosphere, a generous thick layer of air. By the moment a cosmic ray arrives at you on the surface of the Earth, it has collided with so many air molecules that it is spent. It is feeble. It is innocuous. But between Earth and Mars, there is emptiness. It is a target range. The sun is hurling protons at you. The remainder of the galaxy is hurling heavy ions at you. When you are inside that spacecraft for half a year traveling to Mars and half a year traveling back, you are positioned in the center of a barrage. Now, what occurs when one of these projectiles strikes you? You are composed of atoms. You understand that hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, and these atoms are fastened together by electrons. The electrons are the adhesive. They secure your molecules together. They secure your DNA together. When a high-energy cosmic ray comes hurtling through your vessel, it disregards the walls. It disregards a hull. It passes directly through your skin, and it slams into your atoms. It strikes the electrons and sends them scattering. It is like hurling a bowling ball at a tower of playing cards. The framework crumbles. The chemical connection is severed. This is termed ionization. Now, your body is remarkable. It is an extraordinary mechanism. It possesses maintenance teams. Within every single one of your cells, there are small proteins that scurry about searching for harm. They spot a fractured segment of DNA and they declare, "Hey, let's patch this back together." And typically they perform admirably. But on the voyage to Mars, the harm is accumulating too rapidly. It is like attempting to mend a roof while a typhoon is raging. The maintenance teams commit errors. They patch the incorrect segments together. They link a gene that instructs the cell to multiply with the gene that instructs the cell to halt. So the cell grows bewildered. It loses track of its purpose. It concludes it is supposed to simply multiply and multiply and multiply. That is malignant growth. But that requires time. Malignant growth requires years. You might respond, "Richard, I can accept the possibility of developing malignant growth in 2 decades if it allows me to set foot on Mars today." But there is something swifter. There is something that manifests before the malignant growth. Your brain and your kidneys. You see, nerve cells do not regenerate themselves particularly well. When a high-energy heavy ion collides with a neuron in your brain, it carves a trail of destroyed tissue. It is like a microscopic wound from a projectile. Over an extended voyage, your brain is quite literally being riddled with holes. You begin to lose mental acuity. You begin to misplace memories. You begin to grow disoriented. Picture yourself attempting to guide a spacecraft to a landing when you cannot recall which control does what because the region of your brain that stores those memories has been obliterated by a particle from an exploding star 1,000 light years distant. And the kidneys are the purifiers of the blood. They are extraordinarily fragile structures. They are composed of miles of minuscule little channels. Radiation despises these channels. It scars them. It renders them rigid. So here's the picture. You have endured the regolith. You have produced your propellant. You are midway home, but your kidneys are deteriorating. Your blood is saturated with poisons because the purifiers are damaged. You require dialysis. You require a machine to cleanse your blood, but you do not possess a medical facility. You are inside a metal cylinder millions of miles from the closest physician. You perish not because the vessel failed. You perish because the physics of the cosmos shredded your biological machinery at the atomic scale. But hold on, it becomes grimmer. There is a third pitfall, and this is the one that truly robs me of sleep because it is so understated. It is so beautifully simple. It is the pitfall of gravity. Gravity is an enigma. Isaac Newton provided us equations for it, but he did not comprehend what it was. He declared, "I construct no speculation." He simply understood that objects attract one another. Einstein arrived and declared, "It is not an attraction, it is a curvature. Space itself is warped." But regardless of how you wish to visualize it, gravity is the force that molded you. Every muscle in your body, every bone, every valve within your veins is engineered for one purpose: to resist Earth gravity, to resist 1G. Your heart is a pump. It is a fist-sized muscle that must contract forcefully enough to propel blood upward against gravity to your brain. It labors intensely beat after beat day after day. It is like a weightlifter supporting a barbell overhead. Now you travel to Mars. Mars is compact. It possesses feeble gravity, merely 38% of Earth. Abruptly, your heart announces, "Hey, why was I exerting myself so strenuously? This is effortless. I can ease up. I do not need to push so forcefully to deliver the blood to the brain." And you understand what biology does when it no longer requires something? It discards it. Biology is remarkably economical. It announces, "We are squandering energy on this large heated muscle. Let us reduce it." So your heart grows smaller. It grows feebler. It physically alters its form. And your bones, oh, the bones of most dreadful aspect. You imagine your skeleton is like a steel scaffold inside a structure, but it is not. Your skeleton is a vault. It is a vault for calcium. On Earth, you are perpetually making deposits and withdrawals from this vault. Your body inserts calcium to fortify the bones to sustain you against gravity. But on Mars, your body announces, "Hey, we no longer require this massive framework. We are drifting about. It is weightless here. Let us make a withdrawal." So the cells that consume bones begin laboring excessively. They dissolve your skeleton. They release the calcium into your bloodstream. Your bones grow porous. They resemble a honeycomb. They resemble chalk. Now, this is acceptable as long as you remain on Mars. You have transformed into a Martian. You are suited to the conditions. You are a low-gravity organism. But recall the subject of this discussion: no way back home. Picture yourself attempting to return. You board your vessel. You drift for half a year. Your bones grow even frilier. Your heart grows even tinier. Then you strike the atmosphere of Earth. You are experiencing G-forces. The deceleration is punishing. But let us assume you endured that. The capsule lands in the sea. The hatch swings open. You glimpse the blue heavens. You inhale the briny breeze. You attempt to rise to your feet to exit the capsule, and you crumple because abruptly you are back in 1G. But you are attempting to resist it with a 38% G body. Your heart, which is withered, attempts to drive blood to your head, but it is unable. It is too feeble. The gravity of Earth drags the blood downward into your legs. Your brain is deprived of oxygen. You lose consciousness. Your bones, which are now composed of chalk, attempt to bear your weight, but they are unable. They fracture. You endure numerous breaks simply from attempting to rise. You are being overwhelmed not by a boulder, not by a creature. You are being overwhelmed by your home. You are being overwhelmed by the very surroundings you were born into because you are no longer yourself. You have been altered. The planet Mars has reshaped you. It has seized your biology and it has contorted it to match itself. And this leads us to the most profound insight I wish to convey. The insight about systems in physics. We speak of isolated systems, but in truth nothing is isolated. You are not distinct from the Earth. You believe you are a separate individual strolling atop a planet, but you are not. You are a component of the planet. You are an extension of the planet. You are fashioned from Earth substances. You are calibrated to Earth gravity. You are guarded by Earth magnetic fields. You are a component of the Earth system. When you depart from that system, you are like a fish leaping from the water. A fish can leap from the water for a brief instant. It can perceive the air. It can perceive the sun. But it cannot survive there. If it lingers there, it perishes. We believe that because we possess technology, because we possess rockets and computers, that we can circumvent this law. We believe we can fashion a fish tank and transport it with us. But the tank has cracks. The radiation seeps in. The gravity seeps out. The regolith seeps in. The cosmos is perpetually striving to bring you into balance with your environment. On Mars, balance means demise, or at the absolute minimum, it means transforming into something that can never depart Mars. So, when I observe those blueprints for colonization, when I observe the schedules that proclaim we will have 1 million inhabitants on Mars by 2050, I cannot help but chuckle. But it is a melancholy chuckle because they are disregarding the bedrock laws of nature. They are treating biology like software that you can simply update. But biology is hardware, and it is hardware that required 4,000 million years to develop for precisely one setting. This one does that signify we should not venture forth? No, I am a discoverer. I have faith and curiosity. I maintain we should send our eyes and our ears. We should send machines. Machines are magnificent. They do not develop malignant growths. Their bones do not erode. They can slumber in the regolith for a millennium and rouse themselves and transmit a greeting. But for us, for these containers of water and protein that we label human beings, we must be modest. We must acknowledge that we are not the sovereigns of the cosmos. We are the offspring of Earth. And like all offspring, we can roam a short distance. We can frolic in the garden, but when the day is done, we must return home. And if we venture too far, if we traverse that dark expanse to that crimson speck, we may discover that the entrance is sealed behind us. We may discover that we have turned into strangers on our own native world. So, gaze upon that pale blue. That is where you are meant to be. That is where the air is pure and the gravity is precisely suited and the magnetic field envelopes you like a cozy blanket. Do not dismiss it. It is the sole dwelling you will ever possess.